everyone, welcome back to Tayflight Garage. This is part 2 of the gauge cluster upgrade here. So gauges haven't been delivered yet, but in the meantime I wanted to come back in the car and walk you through all the wiring that I've done in preparation to make the needles glow and basically have a supply source ready for the inverter that will power the gauges itself. So I didn't want to mess with soldering on this flexi PCB or tapping into the lighting pods for the LED bulbs in here. I just didn't want to solder onto this. These are old and they're expensive, and I'm already nervous enough about screwing with it. So we've gone the ICT shift knob route. And if you haven't seen this video on the install that I did, we basically tapped power for the ashtray bulb, and we've done the exact same thing here for this little bulb that illuminates the dash vent logo. So in case you weren't aware, that does light up, and that's the bulb for it. So what we've done is just cut the wires, joined them together, and added 2 Y splitter connectors, and one for positive. Obviously brown is ground, and the gray wire is the power. So by splitting it off into the Y, we basically have 2 power leads. One is the power lead for the needles, and the other will be the positive power for the inverter unit, and the negative is the same exact thing. It's just ground for the needles and ground for the inverter. So when that gets here, all we'll have to do is basically just connect up these spade connectors for the inverter circuit. Same way, just connecting positive and negative, 12 volt power supply. And because it's already on the instrument light circuit, it's fuse protected, all that good stuff. And when I turn on my headlight switch, it'll function normally as if I had bulbs connected. I haven't connected anything back here as far as the main wiring harness goes, just for testing purposes and to make sure that all this works. But if I were to connect this right now, my LEDs or the instrument lights, the actual lights, would start lighting up down here and all that other kind of stuff. And if I were to turn the key and all that other kind of good stuff, all the warning lights would illuminate, all that other kind of cool stuff. So that is the wiring for as far as inside the car goes. I figured it would be the least invasive way to do this. Also, I need it to be serviceable. I need things to be able to unplug if this needs to come out for any reason, for maintenance or anything else. So that's why I don't really recommend soldering connections back here, and I wanted something that was a little bit more substantial than just the blade connectors. I hate those blade taps. So yeah, that's all it really is. We've just taken all the positive and negative for the LEDs, made sure that we have resistors on them that can handle the voltage supply, and connected all the positives on one side, all the negatives on the other, and ran that out to 2 main positive and negative leads, and connected that up to the supply side, which we've tapped in from this bulb here. So that's really the extent of the wiring. When the gauge faces come in, they will have a power supply, basically an inverter that will take this 12 volt power and send that to the gauge faces. So all that's left to do now is unbox the gauge faces and get them installed. So we've got our MOMAN gauge faces delivered, and you can see this is how they look. There's the electroluminescent film, I guess, and then there's our new gauge. And like I said, they basically just overlay on top of the old gauges, just like this. And the way that you line them up is on the side here. There's just enough of a view for you to get the markings lined up properly. And so the speedometer and the tachometer will be held down with the 2 screws. And then for the smaller side gauges, we have some basically double-sided adhesive that will just overlay on top of these guys back here, and that's all it is. And these guys come pre-wired, ready to plug into the inverter. And so I'm gonna go ahead and carefully try to get the rest of these installed, and then from there it will just be a matter of getting them plugged in and giving them a test. Okay, real quick, I'm gonna speed bomb through some information here for you guys. I ended up removing the gauge faces, the factory gauge faces from the end pods, because I just didn't like the way that the gauges were sitting on the old ones, and they were easy enough to remove. Just be super careful and you can pop these off. Behind these is behind the gauge faces is a little light diffuser, and so this just sits on that. And yeah, like I said, just super easy to pop that off and then just stick the MOMAN gauge face on there, no problems at all. So I will keep these guys in a safe place. If you do put or get adhesive on here like how I did in that previous clip, you can just rub it off with your thumb. Be super careful. And yeah, other than that, real quick, I just want to show you how all the wiring is set up and what it's going to. Everything is basically just coming out of the holes for the bulbs, the old bulb sockets. So everything just kind of is tucked neatly in here. Took my time. Just take your time with it, and you can snake a lot of the wiring into some gaps so that it's underneath and not interfering with anything. I am leaving a couple of screws out of the bottom here just to give me enough of a gap, because I do have a couple wires that are just kind of poking out, but not the biggest deal in the world. I came back through and re-tucked all the wiring through the gauge faces and all this stuff. So this is basically me just going through and prepping it to get put back in the car for the final time as the final version. So I need to go through and I'm out of male spade connectors, so that's all that's going on here. I just need to get some male spade connectors so that I can plug my extensions back in, and this should be ready to go back in the car. One of these small LEDs did fail on me, so while this is all exposed and everything like that, next time I take this apart, I'll go ahead and replace one of those LEDs. It's just the bottom one for the MPG gauge. So they are finicky, it sucks, but once they're in there, it should be good. All the other ones are working just fine. So I think that's all the information that I want to give you as far as the cluster goes. You can see the MOMAN gauges. Here's how they connect. They're awesome little just 2-pin plugs with housings that snap together. So, and then all of these funnel into a single connector that plugs into the inverter. So whenever we're removing this from the car, it should just be unplugging the extensions from where I have them in the dash, and I'll show you that right now, and then this one plug, and that way all of this is still easier to remove than just trying to do a permanent solution or hardwiring everything to the car. So last thing that I want to mention is this is out of the car for the last time because I am waiting on some new gauge needles to show up. I'm going to try some F-150 gauge needles because they're the exact dimensions that are required for these needles. They are almost perfectly within spec. So it's 41 millimeters from the center of the hub to the edge. And I think these needles here that I 3D printed are around 41.5 or 42, and 17.5 millimeters from the center of the hub to the tip of the small pointers. So I'm hoping that having actual gauge needles that are meant to be backlit will be better as far as the weights go. And that's the other issue that I'm dealing with here, is the weight of these 3D printed needles is too heavy. These are just, again, concept, mainly just for me to kind of get an idea of sizes and stuff like that. So that's one reason why this is going to be a 3-part series. I'll come back and I'll do a final video once I get everything sorted out, but it's just going to take me more time to tinker and kind of F with it and figure it out. So that's all good, and taken care of. So let's head over into the car now, and I'll show you what the last steps here are. So like we mentioned before in the previous clips, we've gone through and we've made extensions that top off or tap into the dash trim light right here. So we've got our connectors, our two negatives and two positives, basically one for the needles and one for the inverter. This is the inverter, so this is what will get plugged into the power for the car, and then the gauges themselves will plug in here. So you can see there's that one single connector that splitter plugs into, and then you just have positive and negative leads that come off of here that will go, again, one into the negative and one into the positive. The last thing that I need to figure out, and I'll do this off camera, is I'll try to figure out where I'm going to mount this so that it's tucked away in a safe place and is protected. Right now I'm thinking I'm going to go back behind this support bar and out of the way, even if I have it blocking one of the screw mounts for the dash. You know, if I have 3 screws in here, I'm not super worried about it. So right now that's where I'm thinking I'm going to mount it, so that it's completely out of the way. And then from there, it's just going to be making some adapters. The only thing that is kind of annoying is that the gauge of this wire is different than the gauge of this wire. So this is 16 gauge wire, and I'm pretty sure that this has to be like 18 or 20. This is much closer to like hobby wire. So I just need to make some adapters for that. Like I said, I'm out of male spades. So I'm going to re-up on some supplies. I'll get this all figured out. And the final video that I'll do, I'll come back and I'll post an update once we have the other gauge needles installed, and we'll see how it looks. But for the time being, just to give you guys a proof of concept, I'm not going to leave you hanging. The next clips here are going to be some of my test footage and just messing with how it looks in the car and how the lighting will all look, and you can kind of get a better idea of what my overall goal is for how this to look in the end. So as always, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this has been a challenging project, but a fun one. And I think the end result, if I stick with it, is going to be really, really good. So take care out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy this footage. First power up. Come on. Oh, man, that looks so good. Holy cow. Oh, I can't wait to get this all finished up.